team.
Hey there guys, this is Malorian and this is the Orc Tactical Team, and today we're coming back to the Dwarf book to talk about Runelords and Runesmiths. Now, before we really get into these guys, I want to first of all talk about the whole armor pierce thing, because people are confused, and I'm being asked several times, like, Malorian, how does this work? What does it apply to? And the real thing I think here is that people really want it to apply to armor pierce or to their quarrelers. Now, of course, where we're coming here from is that Rune Priests. An interesting bonus that they give the unit now is that they give them armor piercing, and so that's not too bad. You add these guys in, and all of a sudden, oh, your armor's this. No, it's one lower. It's pretty nice. Now, like I said, the unit's getting this, and people are asking, like, okay, well, if I have throwing axes or if I have quarrelers, does that got armor pierce too? And just to quickly go and touch on this, kind of rule mechanic here as well. If the unit has armor pierce, it's just your combat attacks. Weapons can also have the armor pierce rule, such as the Dark Elf crossbows, and then it applies to that shooting thing, if it's actually a shooting weapon. So in this case, the Rune Priest or Lore gives it to the unit, so this is only melee. So as much as you would love this to be on the quarrelers and stuff like that, it's not really that big of a deal, right? It's just combat. Now, I guess the next thing to talk about there is how big of a deal is it to have this armor pierce? And, it really can depend. I think the best spot where it really goes into is, let's look at the different options. Either we're looking at really weak guys, strength 3, somewhere in the middle, or on the very high end. So basically, warriors with shields, or we could be looking at your more elite guys, your iron breakers, stuff like that, your long beards, and then the high end, you got your hammerers. Now, on the low end, I wouldn't really bother putting armor pierce there unless you don't have other options, because for the most part, they're not doing a lot of wounds, and if you're not really making them take a lot of armor saves, it doesn't really matter if they're -1, because there's not really going on. But hey, if you have a Rune Priest and all you have these weak guys, why not, right? It's a free ability, you might as well use it. Now, let's look on the high side, the hammers. These guys are only strength 6, so these guys are already going to minus your armor by 3. Now, on one part, you could say, like, well, you might as well specialize, right? I'll take these hammerers, and then even if I fight these guys with a 1+ save, instead of them going to a 2, 3, 4+ save, they're going to a 5. So, it'll help them really go and smash these guys. I think the big thing you have to look at there first is, sure, that's okay, bring that down. However, you're dwarves, right? And if they're coming in with these knights and whatever, they'll have a 1+ save, they're probably not going to direct them at your hammerers. So these matchups probably won't really happen. And at the same time, too, if these guys are designed to really be hitting hard, putting that Rune Priest in that front row is getting rid of one of those attacks. So even though you might be going really strong and having that stuff, well, now this model here is kind of reducing the attacks. It's almost like you see sometimes too, like for the orcs and goblins. There's like, oh yeah, I got my Savage Orc Biggins, and I'll have my Shaman in there with the Shrunken Head, and I'll have my BSB, and I'll have this, and all of a sudden, there's not that many actually Savage Orc Biggins. They're actually fighting type thing, right? So kind of watch out for that. So really what I'm getting to is that the middle point there where we're looking at either the Iron Breakers, the Longbeards, or also even the Iron Drakes. They're all in that little middle region there where they're about strength 4, and they do pretty alright, right? They're kind of like that little middle area. You could also say maybe as well regular warriors or great weapons or something like that. And that's probably going to be at the point where that extra pip of armor pierce is really going to do you a lot of good. However, whereas the opponent is going to be avoiding the hammerers, well, I mean, these are going to be the next best choice. So now, if these guys might be facing those harder targets, let's get that armor pierce in there. So, at the same time, too, right, if you have a unit where they are the strength 4, because they're the semi-elite guys, having in the Rune Priest then isn't all that bad, right? You're not really losing out on something that really is supposed to hit hard. Now, past that, let's look at our choices. You have the Rune Lord and you have the Rune Priest. the Rune Lord is double the cost of the Rune Priest, and really all you're getting is an extra wound, your toughness 5, you can take more magic items, and your magic resistance 2 instead of magic resistance 1, so it's not really that big deal. I've seen a couple people where they're trying to really build a middle of the road type thing, where they have it so, all right, this is the guy that's going to go and have some of my magic defense, and as well, I'm going to make him my lord as well. It'll be my fighty guy. The problem is that this guy only has 2 attacks. So really, between him already being a good chunk of points, adding on the magical defense stuff, which is also could be a big chunk, and then the other combat stuff, I mean, this guy gets very expensive for not doing very much, right? If this is a guy where he had several attacks and, if the Rune Lord had 4 attacks or something crazy, sure, yeah, go make it middle of the road type thing. But with 2 attacks, it just doesn't really make it worthwhile. So really, I'm always looking at the Rune Priest. The Rune Priest is really where it's at. Very cheap, very easy way to put this guy in, and for the most part, he's going to be your spell caddy type guy, right? Your scroll caddy. So you're going to have one guy with the rune of the spell breaking, and if you really need to as well, you can always take another one, put in the rune of the furnace, another 5 points. This guy now will have a 2+ ward against flaming attacks. So then at that point, hey, if I'm ever facing something that it's Chaos Dwarves and there's a Gatai Destroyer, go get him, buddy, right? This is your job. Past that, really make sure to keep these guys cheap and defensive. They do have the option for the great weapon. Don't do it. Don't fall into that trap. Sure, you're saying to yourself, well, I could also take like a 1+ armor save with the Master Rune of Grommel or something else. No, don't bother. Go ahead and just give him a shield and the Rune of Stone, because, hey, everybody can have the Rune of Stone, so repeat that as many times as you want. This is going to mean that he's going to end up with a pretty good armor save, and then plus as well, of course, if you're being charged, he's going to have that 5+ parry. And the thing you have to watch out for, especially if you start getting to multiples, is that people are going to be gunning for this priest. It's almost like when you go up against Empire, right? And they have their warrior priests. It's like, well, sure, the hatred might just be for the first round, but I know there's a lot of points right there that's fairly easy to kill. And they're going to be targeting this guy. And especially if you're in a point where you haven't used that scroll yet, this guy's a really big target. Plus, remember, because he's granting armor pierce, he is definitely something where the opponent is saying, that guy has to die. So absolutely keep this guy defensive. Like I said, don't go crazy with the other runes. I'm not saying you have to go and give them +1 toughness and extra wounds and all the rest. No, keep these guys cheap. Keep them to the point. Make it so that they're just going to have that shield and a Rune of Stone. And at that point, they should be good enough. I mean, that's not a big point investment, but it's really going to help keep these guys alive. Of course, do all the rest of the stuff. Keep them on the corner of a unit. Make sure that if you are worried about challenges and stuff, have a unit champ or something else in there. If you are running the Dwarf Lord build, have them in the same unit as the Dwarf Lord so that they can go and try and defend there. If you're going really cheap, like I'm actually liking, where you just take your BSB and then your Rune Priest, he's your general. All of a sudden you put them in the Hammerers, and any Hammerer, you don't need to upgrade them, they can all take challenges. So that's a kind of good way to keep these guys alive as well. Now with this, don't also feel that you have to have him in a frontline unit. Like I said, people are going to be trying to target this guy and kill him. They're going to try and get there fast, try and get rid of that scroll so that they can force in, the purple sun or something and really destroy your army. And if you need to, like I said, armor pierce is nice. It's not critical. Don't feel compelled that, man, this guy has to be in the front line. If you're up in a spot there where you figure like, wow, they're going to come in and they're going to try and assassinate me, figure out a bunker. Figure out a way to keep them farther back. That little unit of 10 quarrelers, whatever you might have, have them set further back, maybe even as a bunker type thing, and plop that guy there, plop in your BSB, and just keep them safe. Now, with keeping things safe, probably the only way where I might say a Rune Lord or something might be worthwhile is if you find that you're up against a lot of death magic, one thing that I do see that can be alright if you're trying to conserve these points and keep these guys alive is because they come with magic resistance too, if you take them and take a natural ward save as well, or buying one with the runes, then all of a sudden you could actually have a 2+ ward against magic. So that's a way you can go, but honestly, even that I find is a real stretch. You know, if you're really finding that people are coming in and they're using death magic to snipe your stuff off, you know what? I mean, for the most part, you should be trying to scroll at that if it does happen. And hey, if it's happening multiple times, you know, maybe you should be taking double runes of the spell breaking, so that on a 4+, you can try and just destroy that one right away. Like, oh, you want to go and keep on trying to do your mind war or spirit leech, 4+, ha, that's gone and out of the game. So that is something that I can see there as a possibility, especially if you're in an area that's really dealing a lot with, say, Blood and Glory, where, okay, I mean, losing this guy isn't a big deal, but if you're losing your general and losing Blood and Glory because of that, okay, now we have to take a step back and try and find another way to keep this working. Otherwise, all I can say about these guys is keep them cheap. Like I said, the Armor Pierce is a little fancy bonus, but otherwise, you know, just make sure to keep them cheap, get in that scroll, and use those points somewhere else. Because, you know, hey, I can spend 100 points to make this guy somewhat not sucky, or I could take a cannon as well. So I'd rather keep my cheap guy and a cannon. So there you go. There's Rune Priests and Rune Lords. And hopefully, for all those people that are wondering between, do my crossbows get armor pierce? That's settled and dead. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Bye.